All right, good morning, everybody. I want to thank you and welcome you to BioAlberta's first annual policy forum. The policy forum intent is to engage people across the life sciences ecosystem to discuss, educate, and inform on key issues facing the life sciences sector in Alberta. This morning, we have over 150 people registered, which is awesome for a first-time event. I think that's a lot in part to the content that we've been able to put together and the powerhouse of panelists we have, including our launch keynote this morning. Panelists and topics will cover the human and animal health, health technology, bioindustrial, biotech industry, and also, as you've seen as a late change, we have presentations from Alberta's two leading vaccine candidates right now who are really on the leading edge of helping us bridge this gap from the pandemic response to an economic recovery. I want to start off first by just mentioning and thanking our sponsors. Merck had come in as a panel sponsor for the session number 1 on antimicrobial resistance. Our gold sponsors, MedTech Plus, IMC, Innovative Medicines Canada, Biotalent Canada and Novartis, as well as our other sponsors, our bronze sponsors, Medtronic, MedTech Canada, Pfizer, and 360 Public Affairs. I also want to thank our partners. Our partner program is important to us because they actually give us proactive advice and advise us on our advocacy efforts and our policy efforts. So our platinum sponsors, Deloitte, Janssen, GlaxoSmithKline, Merck Canada, Novartis, and Pfizer Canada. Our gold partners, AbbVie, AstraZeneca, Boehringer Ingelheim, Dynalife, Gilead, Hoffman LaRoche, Innovate Calgary, Innovative Medicines Canada, Novo Nordisk Canada, and Sanofi Canada. We also have a number of silver sponsors who have joined us today and will be on throughout. So I also want to thank our panelists. You're going to see a tremendous amount of content over the next 2 days. We're really thrilled about how we're going to take the engagement and the information we gather collectively over the next 2 days and really take that to build our advocacy efforts throughout the year, how we engage with government and the sector as a whole. I want to thank you for participating. As I said, there's over 150 people registered for this that'll be in and out throughout the day. So I thank you for your participation. Don't be shy in the panelists. Don't be shy when it comes to asking questions. We really see this as our ability to engage with you. I want to thank our members across BioAlberta. We represent every sector on the breadth of life sciences, and we're proud to do so, and we look forward to working with you. And one of the most exciting things for me is that there's a number of non-members today, which show me that there's interest across the industry. And we hope after today and after you see what BioAlberta does do for work across the life sciences sector, that you'll consider joining us as members. So with that, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. I have known the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Innovation for over 15 years. Our paths keep crossing over that time. And I could read his normal bio, but he's heard it before, and I think many of you probably have. But here's what I know about Doug Schweitzer. He was elected in Calgary-Elbow in 2019 and appointed Justice Minister. He was appointed Minister of Jobs, Economy and Innovation in August of 2020. He is a family man. He has 2 daughters. He has a young family like most of us do. He believes in community. And one thing I've seen in his community work, as in his ministerial work, both in Justice and Solgen and in JEI, is that he jumps in and gets things done. Minister, we want to thank you for the way you embraced this portfolio and especially embraced life sciences as part of your tech and life sciences portfolio. There was a lot of work done in the first year of the mandate, and you hit the ground running in August. After you were appointed, I started to get a number of calls saying, Minister Schweitzer is coming to see us, or Doug's coming to see us. He's going to pop by the office in the next few days. What should we talk about, and what are the messages that he needs to hear on this sector? So it was a signal that you were, not only were you willing to engage, but you were reaching out. You weren't waiting for groups to come with us. So we hope you have some good news for us and can explain some of the interesting and exciting initiatives that came out of the budget last week. This is very well timed for you to engage with the life sciences sector. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to you, Minister Doug Schweitzer.
Thank you so much, and yeah, appreciate the kind introduction, and yeah, really looking forward to particularly the question and answer part of our dialogue here today. So here I'm at my home in Calgary today. I got my daughter's artwork behind me, but I really just want to highlight some elements of our recovery plan, some of the budget parts that we announced last week, as well as getting into the pharmaceutical strategy, the life sciences strategy for our government, because I think it's a really critical foundational piece of our overall diversification strategy for Alberta. But I'll start just at a high level when it comes to where we are right now in our COVID response. So we're in step 2 of our reopening plan right now. We just announced that this week. So we're slowly and strategically reopening different types of businesses, different types of activities across our province. We've seen case numbers come down considerably from where they were over the winter. And right now they've appeared to stabilize, but we're monitoring it closely. We've seen certain regions have had a little bit of growth in the last few weeks. So we want to make sure we monitor this closely and make sure that we have the right parameters in place. So our hospital rates have come down. They were up over 900 during the peak of the wave in the wintertime. They're down well below 300 now, in the mid 200 range. So we're continuing to monitor capacity in real time across our province to make sure that we can respond and keep people healthy across Alberta. So again, with these things, it's I have the opportunity to sit on the COVID cabinet committee, and we meet about twice a week, going through data, going through different options, what's happening. And you know what, we're learning sometimes on certain things as to what works around the world, particularly early on in the pandemic. We're taking a look at data from different countries, and you know what, one thing I'm really thankful for right now is the fact that we have 3 vaccines that have been approved in Canada. Hopefully the 4th one gets approved this month as well. And we're starting to see stability in the supply chain for vaccines coming into our country. So there was a lot of, I would say particularly a month ago in February, when there was a lot of vaccine nationalism going on around the world, that there was a great amount of anxiety that we heard from people in the community. Just everyone was just unsure of, when was this going to be alleviated. So we're hopeful now that the supply chains have been stabilized, that the federal government has stabilized that for our country. So that is a good news story for us. We are exploring, and it was just announced this week, certain recommendations about the spacing between doses. And so we are doing some work right now to explore whether or not we should extend that out to that 90-day window. Or even further. I think there's a 4-month interval. So there's a certain different intervals that we can take a look at, which would allow us to get that first dose of the vaccine out faster. So we're taking a look at that. I think Israel and a few other countries had data around this point. So we're doing our homework on that end. There's some recommendations coming from different experts around the country on this point. So we want to make sure we follow those best practices and make sure we get the vaccine out across our province as fast as possible. So we're ready to scale. We're working with pharmacies, we're working with different business leaders, community leaders, to make sure that we can get people vaccinated, get people comfortable with the vaccine. I mean, the vast majority of Albertans want the vaccine, but there's still pockets of people that have anxiety. So we have to make sure we do an education campaign to encourage people to get vaccinated. So really just appreciate all of your leadership. I know there's many people here that I've had a chance to talk to. You're definitely the experts when it comes to this field, and I'm here to learn. I'm a lawyer by training, so I know Word documents really well. I'm not going to lie, I didn't know what fill finish was until that became quite the hot topic over the last little while. So I am learning quickly on this file, trying to make sure that we have the right framework in Alberta. And I'm going to talk a little bit too later on in my presentation here about what Alberta's strategy is going to be long term. We all know about the need for food security. We've all invested in militaries to keep our national security in place. But there's a real dialogue going on right now about health security and making sure that we can take care of our citizens And there's been a bit of a rethink going on right now in real time across provinces and also with the federal government about how we approach procurement, how we approach development, how we make sure that we keep our citizens healthy and safe. So I'm going to be diving into that a little bit more later on in this speech. But I want to dive in real quick, just give people a little bit of a highlight on the budget that we just announced, as well as the recovery plan. So our budget, it has the largest investment in health in Alberta's history. We also put $1.2 billion into a contingency fund related to health matters and COVID, just in case the pandemic throws us another curveball and further investment is required. We also put $500 million into business contingency fund as a part of the recovery plan. Again, if for some reason further health measures are required, we have to make sure we continue to support small businesses. And just on a highlight there, I mean, we've put in place the relaunch grant. So that's available right now until the end of March for up to $20,000 of support to small businesses across Alberta. So we had to make sure we provided that. And that program right now, initially we budgeted about 500 million. It looks like we're probably going to exceed that and get maybe into the high 500s from an expense. But that's just actually a good sign that people are uptake in the program. We've had well over 50,000 businesses participate in it. It's helps support hundreds of thousands of jobs across Alberta. So that was just critical for us. And that's just part of the support. We also had deferrals of property taxes, other types of levies. And this is in partnership as well with the federal government that stepped up on rent relief, on wage subsidies, other programs there for businesses. But we've also noticed that as we stage out the recovery and reopening, is that certain businesses have been asked to do more than others. So we put in place, starting in April, the enhanced COVID-19 business benefit of up to an additional $10,000 there to support businesses that have been asked to do more, to make sure that they have that support that's required. And there's a different eligibility criteria for that. It's a 60% drop in revenue. So the ones that have been severely impacted are eligible for that new program starting in April. And that one has a budget of about $120 million associated with it. So just we have to be there for those small businesses. So they're just a foundational part of our economy, our communities, our neighbors. They're the largest employers across Alberta together as a team. So we want to make sure we support them to get through to the other side of the pandemic. Then I'll turn now to kind of the broader approach to our economic recovery. And this recovery plan, I would say, is the largest diversification effort of my lifetime in Alberta. And we're starting to see some significant green shoots come up in our province that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But the three pillars and the three foundational elements of our strategy is around taxes. That's number one, making sure we have the most competitive tax jurisdiction possible. So we accelerated the job creation tax cut, lowering our corporate taxes down to 8% in Alberta. So we now have the lowest corporate taxes in Canada by a country mile. On top of that, if President Biden implements his campaign platform, we'll have one of the lowest tax jurisdictions in all of North America. There may be a couple states in the US that might be lower than Alberta, but we want to make sure we position ourselves for success. So tax competitiveness, that's critical. And we've already implemented that part of our strategy. The next part is efficient government. So for the longest time, in the last few decades, Alberta's been an outlier. We had it pretty good with economic growth. Last 5 years have been bumpy, we know. But before that, we had it pretty solid, pretty good in Alberta, and we spent more than everybody else. So our spending per person, per capita, was just an outlier, like dramatic outlier. We were the nail on the board when it came to spending. And our current budget is holding the line on spending, but it's going to bring us down to the national average after this first term in government. And that's really important for us to be able to keep taxes down and keep that pro-business environment that we have in Alberta for the long term, which is going to foster growth. The other part of the efficiency strategy is around red tape reduction. We've dedicated to reducing red tape in Alberta by a third, and we're well on our way to hitting that target. And just in the first year alone, reducing that friction on business saved companies across our province almost $500 million in extra cost. So that's savings back into the pockets of our businesses across Alberta. And we want to make sure we continue to work and find ways to be more efficient as a government. Things to kind of look forward to on that front. We're looking at different ways to make sure that our partnership acts, our corporations act, everything's up to date. Because sometimes these things kind of get there and they get stuck in kind of stasis, and we have to find ways to be efficient. Another perfect example, I used to be justice minister. So another perfect example is that we were still using the fax machine in our courthouses. I mean, my kids wouldn't even know what a fax machine is. They'd be like, "What is that, Dad?" But we are still using that as one of the primary ways to file documents in our province. And so we're eliminating the fax machine. We're bringing in digital filing. We're finding ways to become more efficient across government, and making sure that we still provide probably a better service in many respects. Actually, definitely a better service in many respects across our every single department in government. So that's a big part of it. And then the last focus, the last pillar is talent. Making sure we continue to develop top talent that's relevant for today and the jobs of today and tomorrow. So I'll get into that in a little bit later on the speech on all the different parts of our talent strategy and our Jobs Now program that we'll be initiating. So it's really critical for us, and we've heard loud and clear that talent is just the key for the future. We want to make sure that we have our post-secondary institutions are training talent, but also that businesses have the right incentives to train talent as well. And lots of things that I'm going to get into on that topic later on in the speech. And then the other thing that I find really, really interesting is just going into the sector strategies. And so this is everything from energy to agriculture to tech and innovation, pharmaceuticals, life sciences. So that's what we're going to dive into now. And people often compare like Alberta as the Texas of the North. So we have energy, we've got agriculture, we've got forestry. So we've got some amazingly strong pillars. But the one thing that we're learning is that Texas was very strategic a couple decades ago in diversifying its economy. And now they actually have one of the most diverse economies in the entire United States. And a lot of the foundation was the big three pillars that I was talking about earlier on helped lead them there. But they were also very strategic in their approach to attracting tech companies, advanced manufacturing, insurance companies, financial institutions. So Texas truly is a diversified economy right now. You're seeing companies like Tesla are coming from California. They're bringing a lot of their resources to Texas. People are relocating from Silicon Valley to Austin, Texas. So we want to make sure we learn lessons from blueprints like that, Denver, other cities that have and economies that have gone through, that have similar pillars to ours, but have really found ways to find new opportunities and building blocks for the future. And I think that pharmaceuticals and life sciences is a critical part of that strategy for Alberta. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. Don't worry, it's coming. So when I talk about some of the opportunities that we have in our plan, I want to get first into the tech and innovation space. So this is an area across Alberta that has had a record year in 2020. And so what we did last summer, we put in place the Innovation Capital Working Group to give us advice on how we can build on what we were seeing to be momentum happening in the tech space. So they gave us a whole range of recommendations that we've pretty much implemented all of them to date. So the first one was making sure that we put additional resources into the Alberta Enterprise Corporation. So that's our fund-on-fund structure to help stimulate venture capital investment in Alberta. So we've put $175 million of additional funds into the Alberta Enterprise Corporation, and that money is already being deployed into venture capital funds across Alberta. The second part of it was bringing in place the Innovation Employment Grant. So this is a version of SHRED that allows for up to 20% of research and development costs for the startup companies to be covered through the grant model. So that's another big piece that we did on that front. Then the other thing that we heard was talent, like I mentioned earlier on, and allowing for immigration to help fill some of the senior gaps that we have in the tech and innovations streams that we have, and allowing for entrepreneurs to come into Alberta as well. So we put in place 2 new immigration streams, one for graduates of our post-secondary institutions and another for entrepreneurs. Historically, our focus in immigration was on the temporary foreign workers, think Fort McMurray and the labor pressures that we used to have in communities like Fort Mac. But now we want to make sure we're very strategic in making sure we utilize the immigration team or immigration tools that we have to bring in talent across Alberta. So that's a big piece of it. And we're really starting to see green shoots happen across Alberta. And this is one of those spaces where I think 2-3 years ago, if you said, you know what, a big part of our diversification strategy is going to be on the tech sector, and we're going to bring this into Alberta, I think people would have said, oh, that's cute. And they would have just kind of said, pat you on the head and said, no, go about your day. But we're really starting to see tangible proof points of innovative companies that are really growing leaps and bounds. And I'll kind of highlight a few. I mean, we had Benevity, which was recently a unicorn. It had a transaction where it was valued at over $1 billion US. So that company is like about 800-900 employees, planning on growing further and expanding their reach. You've got Neo Financial, which is a fintech company based out of Calgary. The same team that was behind Skip the Dishes is building out Neo Financial. They're partnering with financial institutions, Hudson Bay Company, credit card companies, really disruptive. They hired a couple hundred people just in the last year alone, and they're planning on hiring hundreds more this year coming up. You've got Cement, again, another kind of fintech type company, which helps with relationship interaction for people to collect funds, building relationship with clients, making sure that they have positive interactions. They went from 50 people last year to 250 now. They're planning on getting up to 500 in the next year, year and a half. Again, another huge success story. You got Jobber in Edmonton, an amazing company there. Again, just raised a significant amount of money early 2021, planning on hiring hundreds of more people in Alberta. And then on top of that, just today, we had Infosys, and one of the largest international companies in IT, just announced that they're going to be bringing 500 jobs over the next 3 years to Calgary. So this is real now. Like it's beyond just a concept and an idea. It's actually reached that tipping point where the innovation ecosystem is here. It's real. And we basically have on the cusp, some significant unicorns. We already have a couple proof points of unicorns, but some companies that are likely on a trajectory to become unicorns, as well as major international players now coming and setting up shop in Alberta. And that's just a real testament to all the effort, our post-secondaries, the entrepreneurs, and that shift in mindset. And I've seen this in the business community. I represent a constituency in Calgary that has a lot of our business community there. And I've seen in the last 2-3 years a real shift in focus, and a lot of folks have built up resources over the last couple decades and has some success in our traditional economic drivers, and they're looking for what's next, and they want to help build a new future economy that's diverse, builds on our strengths, but they're looking at ways to invest as well. So there's been a real shift in that mindset, and it's a real opportunity for us to continue to provide opportunities for young Albertans. And a lot of this too is in the health space and pharmaceutical space. Like this is tools that we're seeing lots of different opportunities here as well in that innovation space across Alberta. I'll go on and comment on a couple more kind of traditional economic drivers before we move back into pharma and life sciences. The other one is our mines and mineral strategy. So lithium, nickel, all the different minerals that are required for electric vehicles and the different batteries that are being developed across the world. I mean, we have a very innovative electrical grid in Alberta, where we actually have batteries now in our electrical grid system, utilizing the Tesla technology here in Alberta to store power and then also deploy it back into our grid. We actually are, because of our unique setup in Alberta for grids, we're actually seeing an immense amount of investment going into renewables, battery storage here in Alberta. We also have the conversion of the coal plants to natural gas. That's all happening in real time. So we're really cleaning up our grid and power generation, and we're doing that in a stable way as well. So it's encouraging to see that happen. That balance of mix of natural gas with renewables is going to provide us with stability. We're also investing in small modular nukes and the technology that goes into it, partnering with other provinces on projects along those lines as well. So it's really encouraging to see that happen in Alberta. We also had just recently an announced financing for Ivor, a company that's doing geothermal work, and they have partnerships with some of the massive international energy companies that are investing in them to help them build out their technology. They're planning on providing enough electricity for 10 million homes here in the near term, but in this decade through their technology of utilizing geothermal. And the way they articulate it, they're using the earth as a battery and they're just using it as natural technology. And I'm really encouraged to see that type of investment happen in Alberta as well. We've also seen new leadership with a new platform called Avatar, which is partnering up with our traditional economic energy companies and pipeline companies and innovative companies in the clean tech space. And they've got numerous companies that are launching. They partner and get employees from these big companies that are working on kind of traditional energy projects, and they want to be more innovative. So they're giving those employees opportunities to unleash their ideas in a venture capital driven way. So lots of really interesting things happening across Alberta in that space. The other thing too that we've launched is our petrochemical strategy. This is going to be key as well for us from a long-term investment standpoint. We do believe that there's the opportunity here to attract billions of dollars of investment into Alberta to further diversify our economy through petrochemicals. We have the feedstock, and again, this is another value add proposition for our province. Another piece as well, recycling, making sure that we're full cycle on recycling in Alberta to make sure that we can do that here. I think gone are the times when people used to kind of ship off offshore recycling goods and kind of say, you know what, we did our good job here. And meanwhile, it wasn't necessarily being handled in the way that people thought that those goods were going to be handled. There's a role here for Alberta to play as a leadership position in recycling in Alberta. There's LNG. There's a whole bunch of pieces there as well where we can help get our LNG products to market, displace coal internationally. So we're building out strategies on all of these fronts. I'm going to go into one last topic here before we get back to our main topic of the day, agriculture. 2020 was one of our best years on record for ag. One of the best years that we've had. And you're starting to see the shipping terminals in Vancouver are very busy getting our agricultural products out to international markets. And we want to build on that success. So we invested in partnership with local irrigation districts and a Canada Infrastructure Bank, $800 million to open up 200,000 new acres of irrigated land, which allows for higher value products to be generated. And again, that allows for additional production to happen here, additional manufacturing to happen here, and as well as higher value products being exported out of Alberta. So a big part of our plan is to get agricultural GDP up in Alberta. We also think it's an opportunity to invest in technology. Agricultural technology is booming around the world, and there's no reason why Alberta can't continue to play a leadership role in this space. We have major international companies based in Alberta that can continue to grow and invest in technology. We have leading post-secondary institutions. One example is Olds College. Olds College has a whole research farm where they use artificial intelligence to help them figure out how to grow mushrooms. They also have massive tractor drones, like almost the size of a house, that they can put out onto the field and just operate as a drone. So it's really interesting to see the opportunities in agriculture for the long term in our province. So one last thing just to highlight on the talent front, we will be launching a Jobs Now program. You'll see this in our budget. We've budgeted over $130 million. It's going to be employer driven to help train talent and help reduce the cost of onboarding. So if you're looking for new talent that's smart, we know that we have a lot of folks that are engineers, geologists, and some of them are looking for new opportunities right now. They're smart, they've got the intellectual horsepower, but we want to help make sure that the training of, sometimes it takes 2-3 months to train someone with a skill set that they require on the job. This new Jobs Now program, the details are to come here shortly, is critical for us to help employers bring on those Albertans that are looking for work and get them back into the workplace. Now, back onto our topic of the day. So when it comes to health, like this is, from somebody coming in as a lawyer, looking at this, I think that this is just one of those areas where we've been doing a lot of work in Alberta for over a decade plus, more than that. The fact that we have a united, AHS in our province, the research that's gone on, at our post-secondary institutions, and in particular, the Li Kai-sheng Institute, the Virology Institute that we have at the U of A. You've got Dr. Houghton, recently recognized with a Nobel Prize. Dr. Lauren Tyrrell, and all the work that's been going on there. And the fact that my sense is that they're really at that point where they're planning for the mid 2020s to late 2020s to really take a lot of that research and development and turn into a commercial opportunity. A lot of the drugs, the Hep C strategy, everything that they were working on there is almost in that human trial or beginning of the human trial phase. So it was looking like, okay, look, this is kind of a play for a little bit down the line, but almost on the cusp. But with our pandemic where we are right now, we've seen numerous companies step up. You've got Entos, you've got Providence. There's other companies that are stepping up, developing out vaccines to deal with COVID. And you know what? This is really timely when you see what's happening at the national level in Canada. And as I mentioned earlier on, when you take a look at vaccine nationalism that happened, and we relied on trade agreements. We thought that other countries would respect those trade agreements, but many of them kind of chose that national security carve out. So we have to take a real refreshed look at how we procure the infrastructure that we have in Alberta and nationally as well. So right now, I'm working with my colleagues across the country. I'm working with the federal minister as well, or ministers, on helping develop out a pharmaceutical strategy for Alberta and our role in Canada. And I do think that we've surprised people across the country as to how ready we are to play a leading role. And we as a government want to make sure that we're well positioned and want to make sure that we are there investing in this as well. So I just want to make sure that I wasn't quite sure if I was going to announce this today, but we're going to do a little quasi announcement. Formal things going up tomorrow. We're going to be launching a process tomorrow to accept proposals from people across our province, internationally. People want to bring proposals forward to the government of Alberta as it relates to vaccines. We want to hear from you. We want to know from development. We want to hear from you from manufacturing. I'll use my commentary on fill finish. I think that's, we want to hear from you on all those fronts and see how we can, what tools and what resources are there in Alberta. We're aware of many projects here in our province, but we want to make sure that, other ones that are out there, that you have that opportunity to come and tell us what you're working on and give us a proposal for what you'd like to see done in Alberta. So that's really important to us. And this will be open, it'll launch tomorrow. We'll make sure we send out the formal press release, do all that part. It'll be open for 2 weeks. And then there'll be obviously your usual due diligence and everything else that goes into it. But I just think that there's an opportunity right now for us to really rethink the infrastructure that's required in our province as well. What capacity do we need? What infrastructure do we need? Do we need further capacity on research, development, the testing ability for different types of drugs and vaccines? So how do we make sure we position our infrastructure for the long term? And now would be the time to really get that forward. We have a keen interest from our federal counterparts on investing in building out this capacity across Canada. I think Alberta can play a leading role in our country in this field, as well as I do think it'd be helpful for us to have thought leaders coming forward like BioAlberta and others, and helping us tell that narrative as to what should be done in Alberta. How could Alberta play a leading role? Because I do think now is the time for that discussion to happen with the general public, and now is the time for us to take a look at how do we position ourselves. And I think long term, when you take a look at this, we are fortunate in Alberta. We have one unified health service, so AHS. They handle a lot of procurement, and their budget's well over $20 billion, well north of that in our province. So I do think that we have to think through how do we procure vaccines, how do we procure drugs, not just from the international markets, but also domestically, to make sure that from a national health security perspective, we're never in a position again where we're fully reliant on international trade to keep us safe. I mean, hopefully we never have to deal with a pandemic like this again in my lifetime. But you know what, we have to be ready for it. The experts are, because of the amount of interaction of humans around the world, there's always the risk of further spread. So we want to make sure that we're never put in a position where we're not prepared. So I'm going to conclude there. I'm really looking forward to the question and answer session that comes from this. And again, thank you so much for your engagement so far, your advice so far to a lawyer like myself, who's not always, I came into this with a blank slate, but I'm here to learn and looking forward to working with everyone going forward.
All right, sorry about that. I thought they were taking me off mute. Minister, thank you for those remarks and the teaser about what's coming. I am happy to say that our members, the sector, and BioAlberta as an organization is here to help, and we can play a role with you in order to help collect some of that information and look forward to engaging with you and your officials in the future. So thank you for those remarks. You're right, not bad for a lawyer. We generally won't hold that against you. We've had a couple questions come in. I'm going to start off with one, and then we'll go to the chat line. For those of you who are watching, put your question in the chat line. We're coordinating them. If there's a couple questions we can put together, and we'll ask them and get the minister's response. So you answered most of my questions already, so that's a good start. The one I want to ask is around access to capital and support. And we've seen there's a lot of venture capital in oil and gas. There's as you said, a steadily growing VC pool and capital pool available for tech. What we struggle with in life sciences is helping people understand the length of time to development, which is a little bit different. The payoff is different. The the timeline for development is takes more. But where we really struggle is the traditional valley of death. So there's tremendous supports initially for companies, but once they get past the family and friends and angels phase and start to look in that point where they're really commercializing and really growing, they're starting to look for bigger amounts, $5 million, $10 million, $20 million in order to really hit the ground and take off and be a job creator. What do you see as some of the solutions that are coming to help companies on that commercialization phase and get through the valley of death?
You know what, excellent question. And I think a lot of this comes in, that's one of the reasons why we put the $175 million into the Alberta Enterprise Corporation. It's meant to be there for venture capital. And this isn't necessarily the earliest stage of venture capital. We're talking Series A and other kind of bigger significant investments that can come in to help that scaling phase as well. So that was one piece of it. But the thing is too, we have to take a look at first customers. A lot of these young companies that are coming up, they struggle sometimes to get that first customer. And I do think that it's worthy of a discussion with the AHS, Covenant Health, other people that are procuring different types of materials and goods to find ways that we can help collaborate to understand if there's any barriers for them adopting any new technology, what can be done to help make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. I actually have had a conversation with the head of procurement for AHS about this exact topic to say, hey, okay, how can we have a whole bunch of innovative companies here in Alberta. Sometimes they're finding that they have an easier to get a customer in the United States than it is to get with the Canadian Health Authority. How can we help make sure that we get this done? So I think it's worthy of further discussion. I think that the one thing I would observe is that I think that Avatar platform, when it came to clean technology and how they partnered with the oil and gas companies, energy companies, pipeline companies, they found a way, because they've had a similar hurdle where that first customer was challenging in some of those innovative clean tech spaces. But by working with them right up front, saying, we want to partner with you, we want to use your employees in this new venture strategy that they have, an incubator that they have, they found a way to get that first customer. So we may be able to take a look at similar approaches in the health space as well to build up first customer capacity and get through that growth scale phase.
Okay, thanks. What as important as first customer, and what you'll see in our second panel today is a discussion about first testers and assessment of technology. And so, just for everybody who's in there in the queue and watching, the second session today will really focus a lot on what AHS is doing and what Covenant Health is doing to bring in different partners and be able to provide that assessment of technology for companies. Okay, so first question from the audience. You mentioned the wanting to be a little pandemic proof, and when it comes to vaccine supply and security of medicines. ICED has opened a consultation process right now, and they're requesting feedback on ideal locations. Given what you said that you'll be announcing, what makes Alberta the ideal home for such biomanufacturing facilities, and what will Government of Alberta and JEI support to push to attract these facilities here?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we want to hear your ideas. I mean, I've kind of keenly aware that there's a few different facilities that are looking at establishing manufacturing capacity in Alberta. We do have drugs and vaccine capacity of people that want to develop the products. We have research capacity at our post-secondary institutions. I think that we have to take a look at all three of those areas. So, do we have to make a further investment in post-secondary when it comes to the tools that they need? Is there any other infrastructure that's needed at post-secondary to help with the research? When it comes to the development side, I want to hear proposals on potential developers in Alberta. And then when it comes to manufacturing capacity, I'm aware of a few potential options already in Alberta, but I want to make sure that we scan the opportunities that are out there, and we welcome lots of proposals on that front. So I'm completely welcome to ideas. And from what I've seen, when it comes to our logistical location as well, our geography is, we're blessed with our geography. We have talent pool. We've made this investment for a long time to generate that talent. So I do think that we're well positioned and better positioned than many people actually thought. So this is a good opportunity for us. We thought that our coming out party in this field was going to be probably in the later part of the 2020s, but I think we actually could accelerate that. And right now would be the time to take a look at what those opportunities are. I can't say exactly how much money we'd be willing to put up, but we're willing to put skin in the game at the provincial level as well.
So that's positive to hear. Related to that question and talking about building talent and retaining talent, we talk a lot about the 30, 40-year investment that government has made and industry has made as well in the clinical trial and research infrastructure in the province. And I think our infrastructure is at best with almost any jurisdiction. The concern that's come up from the audience is that with the recent cuts on post-secondary education and rising tuition rates, what's the government's plan to foster and support things like Dr. Houghton and Nobel Prize winning researchers to attract them and retain them here when it comes to existing and emergency infectious diseases?
You know, it's actually interesting to see how we fund research in Alberta. A lot of the funding for research actually comes through my ministry. And then also the kind of more the operating grant comes through advanced education. So kind of your basic operating grant will come through advanced education. And then when it comes to research and development, a lot of that, we have endowments in Alberta, significant endowments that go towards research and development and other funding that comes through my office. So recently we provided an additional $20 million to the Virology Institute at the U of A to continue their work to allow them to get through to human clinical trials and the commercialization of many of the projects that they're working on there. This also coincided with Dr. Houghton receiving his Nobel Prize, and we did a celebration around that point. But that investment though goes way back to the Ed Stelmach years in Alberta. So it's a long-term investment that's been made in building out that capacity. We're going to continue to be there to partner on projects like this. This research and development is critical for the future. But we've also included, things like that innovation employment grant because we want to see commercialization. We want to see, these ideas that are being developed in Alberta for tools, other things, and allow for that commercialization to happen in our province. So we're looking at kind of that push-pull. We want to make sure we continue to fund research, but at the same time, we want to see that research turn into commercial enterprises.
Okay. Here's one you can take back to Minister Shambro and the rest of your colleagues from a health perspective. And it really speaks to how the government wants to flex its policy leadership in Canada. How's the government of Alberta's consultation process around vaccine development, pandemic preparedness, and our region's role in the national pharmaceutical supply chain related to the currently active consultation from ISED? And how do you see the two governments coming together at the end of this to bring out something that works to benefit economic development in Alberta, but help us with that vaccine security across Canada?
Well, I think on this file here, I mean, we've had numerous discussions already with the federal government and our counterparts across the country as well at the provincial level. It does strike me that the federal government is looking for opportunities to invest in this space, like I highlighted earlier on, for a national security standpoint, national health security standpoint. And Alberta wants to play a role. We want to make sure that we put the investments into this. We've made the investments along the years. Now's the time for us to expand out that capacity. And to my earlier point as well, we want to make sure that we leverage the immense buying power of AHS to make sure that this is there for the long term. We recognize that if we're going to make this investment in our country, and as at the provincial level, we have to make sure that it's sustainable and that there's customers and clients for those developers of products.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Next question. Could you talk a little bit about strategies or plans to keep innovations or companies to remain in Alberta and Canada and prevent them from getting bought out by US or other companies from abroad?
It's a great question. And this is one of those interesting balancing acts. We've had certain individuals in the kind of tech space, say, oh, well, we have to protect your IP at all costs and never let anybody foreign buy your company. But at the same time, if you're that young, it's a balancing act, because if you're that young startup company, you may want to get bought out because your company's worth $100 million and you're going to cash out and do pretty well. So yeah, it's that balancing act where you don't want to chase away startups to other jurisdictions as well. Because if you're too focused on not allowing foreign investment to come into your tech sector, those entrepreneurs don't want to be here. They want to go somewhere else where they can get that type of investment, because that sometimes allows them to scale. And I'll use one example on that point. Benevity, our recent unicorn in Alberta. Now they were started here. They've been here for over a decade, but they recently received a significant investment from a private equity firm that's international. They're still planning on maintaining their presence in Alberta, growing in Alberta, but they found an immense amount of injection to help them scale coming from outside of Canada. So it's really just that balancing act. The biggest thing that we've seen though is talent. People want to live in Alberta. People love this province. It's an entrepreneurial place. And when you talk to people that are in the tech ecosystem in particular that have done well, they want to, if they cash out in one venture, they're not done. They're not just going to sit on the sidelines for the next 20 years and put their feet up. They want to get back into that next venture. What's the next one? And the perfect example on that front is the team that was behind Skip the Dishes. They're here now, and they're starting their Neo Financial, which is a financial institution. But that's not the only one that team is working on. They got numerous other types of companies that they're working on. They're taking the resources and investments that they were successful from before, and they're redeploying that into new opportunities. So we want these companies to be successful. We want them to go out there and take on the world. And if they get bought out or if they get acquired, that'll be a significant amount of resources in people's genes that they'll go out there and stimulate that next economic opportunity.
Thank you. This one's a teaser for panel number one. You mentioned that agriculture is a long-standing pillar of the Alberta economy, and COVID's focused attention on the importance of animal health and public health, or as is known, a One Health approach. Will your strategy development be open to the infrastructure needs to support developments in animal sciences and animal health, which leads to food security as well?
I need to learn a little bit more about that field, but I've actually heard that feedback that this actually could be, building out the pharmaceutical sector as when you think about human health, it actually has complementary opportunities when it comes to animal health as well. So happy to take a look at proposals, opportunities, policy ideas. I need to learn a little bit more in that space, but I've heard, kind of secondhand that this is an area that would be worthy of exploring.
Okay, thank you. Next question, what's your plan to build a pipeline of senior talent that can help lead the companies that are growing and expanding?
Well, I think that when it comes to growing out senior talent, this is, when it comes to health, life sciences, pharma, technology companies, it's a global competition right now, and there isn't enough senior talent around the world to fill the demand in many areas. So again, I think this is a matter of building on what we have with our post-secondaries, continuing to make sure that there's the focus on the talent that's needed for the jobs of the future. Making sure as well, when it comes to our side, we're providing through MyTax internship opportunities for young people, thousands of internship opportunities to help with the cost of it. Our Jobs Now program to make sure that people can get trained. Our shift and focus on the immigration policy from an entrepreneurial stream, as well as a graduate stream, as well to bring in the right talent through our immigration policy. So I think it's a matter of pulling on every lever that we've got to make sure we have that the right talent mix in Alberta.
Okay, thank you. And given the time, one final question. Budget last week made reference to the pharmaceutical sector strategy as a key part of the recovery and diversification. In order to develop a sector strategy or roadmap, meaningful engagement with sector companies, small and established, are critical to success. Outside of the what will be launched for this first consultation on vaccine supply, how do you see the pharmaceutical strategy rolled out? And again, my question is going to be, how can we help?
You know what? I think having dialogues, just like we're having here today, is key to that discussion. If there's policy pieces or policy positions that Bio Alberta or other people would like to see brought forward or considered, happy to take a look at it and work in partnership with the health ministry and other departments to bring forward ideas. It sounds like there could be some application for agriculture. There's health. There's other pieces that we could collaborate on. I think it's really just a dialogue. Let's figure out where the gaps are. Let's figure where the opportunities are. And I do think that with the pandemic that we faced, that there is a heightened awareness that we need to build out and invest in this area. And I think that let's make sure we do that in a way that kind of helps bring up other opportunities, for the health and life sciences space.
Thank you, Minister. I'm going to bring the questions to a close. We're about time, and I know that it's a busy day. Minister, I want to thank you for your time this morning. It's great to actually engage with you and have you address the life sciences sector and really pull into perspective and allow us some visibility into your view of the future of industry. So for those of you, there's a couple questions I don't think we were able to get to. We'll work with the minister to provide answers to those questions offline. So we will get those out. We'll probably post them with the videos so you can see them. But I just want to thank you again so much for spending the time with us this morning, for reaching out to our members, and we look forward to the announcement in the coming days to see how we can get going on that first important piece. So thank you very much, Minister. Great to see you again, and we hope you and some of your officials can stay around for the rest of the day.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank
you very much. So we're going to take a quick break to queue up the next session and get us ready for panel one. When we come back, you will be hosted by BioAlberta board member and Chief Scientific Officer for Fedora Pharmaceuticals, a local Edmonton company with a long history of success, Sami Salama. And this is an opportunity to take a break, stretch your legs, grab a glass of water, and come back very soon. Thank you very much.
Well, BioAlberta is an organization that brings together all the different efforts to create biotechnology in Alberta. And I think they have been very successful in trying to link and create an organization. And it's very important when a community gets bigger and you need more people and more biotechs to nurture the environment to make biotechnology part of Alberta's diversification. And I think that BioAlberta has played a very important role in helping to nurture that. Biotech companies like to interact with each other as well, and the people working in different biotechs. So that BioAlberta is a link between the biotechnology industry and the provincial government and the federal government, so they know what's happening in Alberta in the biotech industry. I think that BioAlberta is very important because what we're realizing, and I think it's becoming more and more evident, that it's not only important to do the research, but it's also very important to translate the research into products that benefit humankind. BioAlberta is a organization that helps sell the message of the importance of translation and getting discoveries into medicines and into vaccines that benefit humankind. Biotechnology is going to continue to grow. We need to see the investment in supporting BioAlberta and the biotechnology in the industry. Often it takes time for discoveries to be translated into products that benefit people. And it's through that long period of time that we need government support. And in the end, we will create jobs, we'll create industry, and we'll create companies like this that are benefiting the province at the present time. Researchers have to have a way to file patents. We look in Canada and see that Canada punches above its weight for research, and our discovery research is extremely good. But we also have guidelines that say we can't use the money from our research grants for patents, and often it's difficult to get patents done. If Canada is going to build the biotech industry, it has to look at how we invest in it and how we invest all the way from research through translation, through patents, and finally to produce products. In Canada right now, with COVID-19, we're seeing that we wished we'd made investments in biotech industry 10 and 15 years ago. Probably when SARS hit in 2002, 2003, there was an intent to change a number of things. And we did develop the Public Health Agency of Canada, and we did develop the National Laboratory in Winnipeg. Is another gem for not only Canada, but for the world. And we needed to develop some of the biotechnology manufacturing sites for vaccines and therapeutics. We haven't got that developed enough, and the industry isn't as big in Canada. We need to see a system that partners academia, the researchers in academia with government support, and industry has to be in there as a partner. And that's how we're going to try and get biotech really developed. It's a partnership between the three: government, academia, and industry.